A deep feeling of getting left behind, of personal failure, of not being enough. This is something that people are reporting to me a lot in my therapy room at the moment. And I think it's a signature feeling of being human in the world at the moment. The century is moving faster than we can. It's making everyone have this feeling that somehow they're not enough, that somehow they're failing, because we internalize this not being able to keep up. And yet, this is the century that we're living in. This is how the phenomenon of an accelerating world is showing up in people's individual lives, in yours and in mine. Right? The way it shows up is it feels like a personal failure. Whereas actually, maybe it's something a bit more like technology and capital between them are creating a situation where we can't catch up, right? Where the world is moving a little bit faster than human being can move. I think about hitchhiking once, and maybe some of you have had this experience. So you're hitchhiking and a car will pull up, but it's kidding, right? And so you take a couple of steps towards it and then it pulls away and then it stops again, just enough for you to get your hopes up, and you try to catch up again and then it pulls away. And I guess that's funny for them. And I don't know if this century is doing that on purpose, but that's the effect that it's having on human being, right? It makes you feel left behind. So this feeling of constantly not being able to do enough, which is almost the point of this economy, right? We're trying to catch up with this artificially accelerated way of being. And that feeling is interpreted by people as a personal failure. Maybe you feel this. I certainly feel it sometimes. It's like there's nothing I can do that will be enough. There's nothing I can do that will enable me to keep up. I had someone a while ago explain this rather beautifully in my room, and they gave me permission to share this. The person had just lost their job to technology, and they said to me, the bad days are when I think I am completely screwed, and the good days are the days when I remember that we are all completely screwed. This is why it's really important to remember that the experience of being a human at this point in history is one that has a component of inevitable failure in it. And when we internalize that failure too much, it becomes really difficult. So why is that fear of being left behind so incredibly intense in the world at the moment? Well, it's a deep existential fear. Most of us, maybe all of us, when we were very young, have had this awful experience of being dropped, of being excluded, of being shut out of a relationship or of a friendship group. And that is a horrible experience. It's deeply traumatic. It's deeply destabilizing. It's incredibly unsettling. Oh, and we never want that to happen again. But then later, all through the education system, here it does come again, right? We constantly face this fear of not making a grade, of not making the cut. And that carries on now into professional life, where all of us, of course, can be cut at any time and maybe replaced by a machine, and maybe the whole system rolls on as if we'd never existed, right? We can be left behind. This stuff is real. You can see that in all of our TV formats at the moment. Right? So many of the formats are about making the cut. Right? So each week people are voted off, or they vote each other off, and the people who make the cut are allowed to carry on in the studio light while everyone else, goes off and packs their bags, which foreshadows something that we all know is going to happen to all of us, this final cut, where we face our own death. And this is the deep existential fear. We know that this is going to happen. At some point, we will be left behind. We will finish and the world will carry on. This is the deep fear. And in this very accelerated culture where we risk being left behind all the time, this is the deep human nerve that the culture is pressing on. This deep fear of being left behind. And it shows up. It really shows up in the feelings that we carry in our bodies and in our minds. Think of it like a kind of emotional tinnitus. Tinnitus, this thing that you have in your head and in your ears, a ringing, a loud sound which is constantly there, and sometimes it's better and sometimes it's worse, right? An emotional tinnitus would be this feeling, right? This deep existential dread rising quite close to the surface, this fear of being left behind, showing up as a tension in your chest, or a churning feeling in your guts, and showing up in your thoughts as well. And it doesn't show up as a feeling of death or a deep fear of being left behind. It scatters, it atomizes, it attaches to smaller and apparently more actionable questions instead, like, am I enough, right? Or am I being too much? Or is there some sort of trick that I'm missing in this life that would help me to somehow keep up or get ahead? What are the hacks? What are the tricks? What are other people seeing that I'm not? Do I look good enough for this world? Am I smart enough? Do people think I'm dumb? Like, what can I do to make sure that I'm included? What can I do to make sure that I'm not being left behind? This is the constant baseline, deep dread and scattered thoughts that are a signature experience of being a human being in this accelerated culture. This is why this stuff matters. What is helpful? What can we do to work with this deep feeling that we're being made to carry as human beings in an accelerated century, right? In a time that is faster than human beings are able to operate? What helps? What do I notice that is really useful for people? Well, the first thing is to acknowledge the reality of our situation, that we live in a time in which we're required to be moving faster than human beings actually can move, right? So whenever we notice that what is necessary is starting to become separated from what is possible, then we really have to pick a team, right? And I think the invitation is always to pick what is possible rather than what is necessary, right? So if the century requires you to move faster than a human being can move, that's not on you, right? That is the century's problem. Actually, our job is always to pick what's possible. In therapy, there's this big idea that people have, which is that they need to change. And I always gently push back against that. And I would invite you and I to push back against that too. Because maybe we don't need to change. Maybe we don't need to collude with this idea that we must move somehow faster than we're able to move. Actually, maybe what we need to do is just, rather than changing, just stay loyal to ourselves, stay true to who we are in this situation. And how do we remind ourselves that we're going to pick us, right? That we're going to pick ourselves, that we're going to pick team humanity? Well, the first thing we do is restore a kind of kindness to ourselves. So something you can do is give yourself small gifts of time, right? You can give yourself 5 minutes just to lie on the floor and do nothing at all. You can give yourself little gifts to remind you of your own presence, right? You can grind some coffee up in the evening so it's there for you in the morning, when you're sleepy and you can't get that kind of thing together. And then in the morning you can thank that yesterday's version of yourself for having given you that little gift. You can re-establish a relationship of loyalty and trust with yourself, because you have to pick a team, right? If the world is asking you to be something that you can't be, rather than collude with this idea that we need to change into that thing. Actually, there's a completely different approach, which is to reaffirm our loyalty to the thing that we actually are, which is a human being. Now, why does that work? Because it's a practice of self-love and self-care. Right? Love is always a choice. Love is never something that you wait around until you feel. It's a practical choice to love ourselves, to choose ourselves. Right? This is the thing that anchors us. And when we get into that place, we also become able to offer love and to receive love from fellow human beings. Right? This is something that people find really helpful, because when you can get back into that relationship where you're choosing yourself and you're choosing your humanity, then you also become someone who can offer and receive love, which is very connecting for people. And when we're connected, we remind ourselves that we are human together, and that if we are all getting left behind, then actually, of course, none of us are getting left behind. Right? We are all in this together. And when we recenter our experience on ourselves, rather than what is being required of us, then we start to rediscover something deep, something human, and something actually very livable in these times, which are very hopeful times, because the more this acceleration is required of us, the more impossible this gap becomes between what is required of us and what is possible for us. The more we become like Donald Duck on water skis, with these two things becoming ever further apart, the more it becomes evident that that's impossible. The more it becomes clear that we're going to need to commit to ourselves. And so this is the invitation to me and to you, to notice the inevitability of this deep and unsettling feeling that I am getting left behind, but to notice that actually that's not a feeling that you need to do anything about at all, except to recommit to yourself as a human being. If you're working through a feeling of not being enough, if you're working through this fear of getting left behind, I'm with you in this. I feel it too. I wish you very well with it, and I hope that you can be kind to yourself through that feeling.